I think we're on here. Okay, this is going to be a quick live stream here. Just me reacting to the college football playoff selection. Checking on a couple things here. Yeah, like I said, this is going to be a quick one here. I'm going to be checking on a couple things here.
Yeah,
Take care of that. Get a couple things here. Ooh. Like, I'm not my dang. Yeah, just a little mishap here with the tripod here. A big deal. And normally I will be just to be streaming the Steelers live games here, but this one's a little different here with the college football playoff. This will be the last year, I believe, that they will do 4 teams. I think next year they will move to 12. I'm sure the playoff committee right now is kind of sitting there going, man, we wish we should have done 12 this year because you got 6 qualified teams. You got 6 teams that are very much qualified. But you're going to have 2 schools that are going to be pretty pissed off here within the next half hour. And understandably so here on the Florida State. You can tell by the thumbnail who it's pretty much academic that number 1 will be Michigan. Number 2 will be Washington. I believe Michigan will be put in the Sugar Bowl in New Orleans, considering it's a little closer to the campus as opposed to Pasadena. And with that being said, I would say Washington's going to travel south to the Rose Bowl as the number 2. The question is, who will be 3 and who will be 4? I gave up 2 different predictions here. Analytically, here Florida State should not be punished for injuries. Yeah, they had to go with the 3rd-string quarterback last night against Louisville. But they got the job done. They won 13 games out of 13 games. So just going by that, they should be able to go to the playoffs. And probably going to be a 3. If they are going to go, I would say they're going to be a 3. They will be a 3, and they're going to play Washington. Now, for the number 4, I have to think that number 4, on both of my predictions, I had Texas in the playoffs. Texas, all the way back in late September, early October, whenever that was, they went to Tuscaloosa and they handled their business with Alabama. I mean, that wasn't like, oh, it was a close game like what last night with Georgia and Alabama was. Texas went in there and handled their business, and they just looked better than Alabama in that game. So I have to think that Texas has to get a spot. Won the Big 12 title game yesterday, and won it very decisively. Their only loss was the Red River rivalry game against Oklahoma, and that was with literally seconds left. So going by that logic alone, I think And maybe it's simpler to some people. And maybe it's simpler just to say, okay, it should be Florida State, and because Texas beat Alabama, it should be Texas. Alabama just got done beating Georgia. Georgia had been number one all year long, and I would not want to. Actually, I would not want to be in that room. That selection committee room. Oh, I don't want to be that right now. I'm like, even though, and maybe the more and more we think about it, I'm like, okay, it's simple. Michigan 1, Washington 2. Are we really going to punish Florida State for having Jordan Travis go down? I mean, it would be considered a punishment. That would be a punishment if you left them out at 13-0 and put two 1-loss teams in. Which, if you were going to do the 2 1-loss teams, it's going to be Texas and Alabama you would put in. I'm just going to rearrange my fantasy lineups here while I'm waiting on that. Personally, I think Alabama should be able to go. But, and my brother pointed this out to me earlier, he was like, why would you punish Florida State for for winning all their games? I mean, regardless how they did it or who was at the helm doing it. I mean, valid points. And according to the All-State tracker that ESPN was showing all morning, they're saying 97% chance Florida State is going to get in. If we're going to follow those numbers, then it's going to be even more simple than what it's probably proclaimed to be. Like I said, Michigan's 1, Washington 2. Then Florida State, on that logic alone, Florida State should be 3 and go and having to travel all the way to Pasadena instead of making a relatively short trip to New Orleans and playing the Sugar Bowl against Michigan, even though you can argue Texas is a better team should be ranked higher than Florida State. One could argue. Same with Alabama. You generally want to have the way they want to do it is have the lower seeds be more of a travel than the higher seed. Washington to Pasadena is not much of a travel because they play there almost every other year, being that's UCLA's yard. Michigan traveling south to the Sugar Bowl to New Orleans, it's a bit of a travel, yes. And if it was Texas at 4, it wouldn't be much of a travel for them. Actually, it would be much less of a travel for Texas to go from Austin just to New Orleans. But, I mean, for Michigan, it's going to be a decent trip regardless. Even if you put them in the Rose Bowl, they're still got to go through 2 different time zones, if not 3. I can't remember which one it was. Yeah, they're showing the selection committee the criteria, head-to-head competition. That's going to be so critical for Texas and Alabama. That's probably what's going to keep Alabama out of it, is that head-to-head loss to Texas. Them winning the SEC title game probably just kept an SEC team out of the playoff for the first time since the playoff has been inducted. I mean, personally, for Florida State, I mean, the reason I would keep Florida State out of it because of that, it's not the 13-0 mark. It's the fact that, what if a situation like TCU and Georgia from that national title game happened? I mean, no one saw TCU getting blown out that early coming, really, because they had beaten Michigan the week prior, you would think that would be a much closer game than what it was. But my point being is that Florida State versus Washington, it's like, or even Florida State versus Michigan, I'm like, is this going to be much of a game? Because Florida State struggled with Louisville. Now, granted, Louisville's is no slouch, but Florida State also struggled with Florida, even though that wasn't the Swamp. It's a rivalry game. I get it. But there has to be that thought process is going, okay, yeah, we can put them in, but what is that game? Is this going to look like a national semifinal game, or is this going to look like this was a top 3 team facing, say, a mid-teens team because of their quarterback issues? I mean, Rudemaker, I imagine Rudemaker will be ready for the semifinal because they obviously got a month to prepare for it, should they get the bid. And how I'm going to do this here, when they reveal the teams, I'll say them out loud, then I'll give my thoughts on the upcoming games and thoughts on the teams that didn't make it, which I imagine Georgia will be a team that won't make it, despite being one for almost all year. It's like, how could you drop a team 4 spots for losing to a top 10 team? Well, it was for an SEC title game, and there was a lot at stake. I mean, Georgia had to know if they lost that game, they were likely not going to make it. They were just going to put Bama ahead of Georgia on any rankings. So Georgia probably fell from all the way from 1 to 6. And Bama might be first one out. And to me, that's ultimately what it comes down to. I'm like, okay, is Bama the first one out or is Florida State the first one out? Because I imagine Texas has to go. Texas looked so good yesterday, and they look good all year. Yeah, they lost to Oklahoma. I mean, they have that one little blip. But again, you lost in the last second to them, and you had beaten Alabama at Tuscaloosa. That should account for a lot. That should have been enough right there to say, you know what? Texas, you're in, no matter what. We're just debating between Florida State and Alabama at this point. Because Texas versus Washington, or hell, Texas versus Michigan is going to be an awesome game. I mean, and to me, what would be more entertaining game? What's more likely to be a better game? You know, Michigan against Alabama or Michigan against Florida State, or Michigan, or wherever they decide to put Florida State. Like you put your Florida State against Washington, what would be better, Washington and FSU or Washington against Bama? Probably Washington, Bama. I mean, Bama had gotten better as the year wound down after the Texas loss, but. And I'm saying they're saying Washington's not even doing a watch party because Washington knows where they're going. They probably know that they're going to be the number 2 seed, and they're probably going to go to Pasadena. It's like, okay, tell us who we're playing, and we'll just. It's like we'll find out who we're playing, and we got a month to prepare for that. This is one of those, like, we've been here before. Just got to get the job done. Showing key wins and the key win. I mean, and the win-loss versus top 25. I mean, all 3 of the one-loss teams have a loss in the top 25. Which, the thing is, I mean, the worst loss out of those one-loss teams is Texas against Oklahoma based on rank. Because obviously Bama, Texas, and Georgia is being Alabama. But obviously, again, the two most nervous schools right now is obviously Bama and Florida State. Like, Florida State has to have that thought in the back of their mind. Like, are they? Are they really going to do this? Are they really going to set a new narrative? An SEC champion has never been set. Yeah, like I said earlier, an SEC. Anyone from the SEC probably won that. I mean, personally, Bama would be a better game, but analytically, you got to leave in Florida State. If they put Bama in over Texas, that would be a crime at this point. Like, that would be robbery if they threw in Alabama over Texas. I mean, yeah, Alabama's got the more credible win because they beat number one in the nation, but you can't ignore the head-to-head. Hell, the NFL doesn't in their standings here in their standings tiebreakers. More on that later. Or in a different stream, that is. I imagine it'll be another 5 or 10 minutes yet before that's revealed. Let's take a look.
On your side, then jump up and pound that table as hard as you can. And the coaches are doing just that. It's not the most deserving. It's the best 14.
Curb, I know what you're thinking. Like, it's the best 4. Well, Michigan and Washington, you're not going to kick them out no matter what you say. I mean, Kirby's just trying to try and plead as much as he can here that Georgia should get in over a Texas or an Alabama, but that's just not going to happen. Bama beat you, Texas beat Bama. You're third in the pecking order. I'm sorry. But back on another commercial. Say in a couple minutes here. Do my thing here real quick. It's about 2.5 minutes, and like I said, when they do the reveal, I do my reaction, then I'll give my thoughts on the matchups and who's going to win those and who would win the national championship. Hmm. mean, I think that's probably the one. Alabama getting in over Texas and Texas being left out would be the biggest. That's what would have me saying, what the hell? Or for Georgia, for that matter, or Georgia over Texas, for that matter, would have me just saying, what the hell? You have to put Texas in. Okay, back from commercial. Here we go. Okay. Oh boy, God, you got to put Texas in there. Just saying, you got. I have no sides on this here, so I'm neutral on this, but I'm just going to call it out and say that. I mean, if not Texas, then let's just say I'm going to be glad that the 14 bullshit's going to be gone, and Texas is going to move to the SEC anyway, along with Oklahoma next year. Oh, fasten your seatbelts here. Like I said, Michigan in the Sugar Bowl, Washington in the Rose Bowl should be a thing. Yeah, that's right. 14 was the first year they did that, and there were a lot of teams vying for it. They gave it ultimately to Ohio State, and Ohio State went on to win it. Oh, here we go. Of course, Michigan. Yep, number one, Michigan. No, you just couldn't put Michigan. You couldn't put Washington ahead of Michigan. It didn't matter anyway. They weren't going to play each other. Harbaugh finally wants to get Michigan over that hump. Danielle, I see your point about the defense. Florida State's defense looked awesome last night. And number two officially is Washington. They're going to go Pasadena. Yeah, SEC might not get in at all. It's going to depend on Florida State, though, because I just can't see them kicking Texas out of this. I know I've been a broken record by saying that, but Oh, boy. I'll shit cotton if they put Georgia in this. Texas at 3. Texas is officially through. They're going to play Washington at the Rose Bowl. They got this one right. I definitely thought Texas and Washington was going to be an awesome game. Okay, the NCAA committee, so far, I love what they called here. Now it's down to Florida State and Bama. I mean, Texas versus Michigan was going to be awesome, too, but I thought Washington and Texas was going to be – that was the right one. That was the right fit. Number 4, drum roll. No, they're going to chase us. God damn it. Oh, God. Are you going to set a bad narrative and leave Florida State out of this? I mean, again, Bama and Michigan's a better game to watch. But, man, oh, God, could you literally leave Florida State out of this? Rudemaker ain't bad. He can probably put a good game together. Rudemaker actually looked good against Florida. Oh, they're going to show 6. They're going to show 6 for net. It's got to be Georgia. It is Georgia. You couldn't put Georgia in there. You just couldn't do it. So Georgia will not be going for a 3-peat. Number 4 is? Oh, it's Bama! It's Bama! Oh, my God. Oh, my Lord. They actually did it. They actually did that. So you literally did punish him for Jordan Travis going down. Oh, excuse me. Actually, they put Michigan in the Rose Bowl against Alabama. I thought they would put Washington. I thought they would make the travel short. Good Lord. Romester, yeah, Georgia's out. Georgia's 6. They fell all the way to 6. That is a difficult decision. I mean, the one guy saying it was a difficult decision. Regardless, this was a lose-lose situation for the committee, really, between Alabama and Florida State. Because was there really a right answer? Probably not. I mean, had Georgia won last night, we were not even had Georgia won last night, then the discussion is, do we put Texas over Florida State? Unreal. Wow. It's going back to kind of what the Kirby Smart said. I'm like, it's not the most deserving, it's just who are the best. And over the last month, who has looked better than any of these 4 teams? I mean, all four teams over the last couple months, they've looked awesome. Yeah, Danielle, I see your point. Is like on paper, it doesn't always things don't always seem as on paper. In reality, sometimes it's apples and oranges. I see your point. I mean, I did say personally, I thought Alabama and Michigan was going to be a better game than Michigan Florida State. Analytically, you literally punished them. You literally punished Florida State because Jordan Travis went down against North Alabama. I believe that was the team they played when he went down. Okay, now that I've seen who I actually thought Michigan was going to play at the Sugar Bowl and Washington was going to play at the Rose, considering the distances, but they threw that out. They threw that out the window, and instead they're going to make Michigan and Washington actually travel more than what you would normally have the top seeds do. And Texas doesn't even have to go far. Texas has got way the shortest trip out of anybody here. Texas just has to move over one state. And heck, Austin's on the western side of Texas, too. I believe. I'm not from Texas, so I don't know. I'm not my geography is not the best in the world. But real quick here, I'm going to give my thoughts on these two games, who I think is going to win, who I think is going to win the national championship. Washington and Texas. Penix looks really good. Penix and Ewers, that's going to be an awesome game. It's going to come down to those two, like who can perform better between Ewers and Penix. We will both hear those names being called in April for the draft. I'm going to go with Texas. Just the vibe I'm getting. I think Texas just has the right vibe I'm getting. I'm going by feel more than I am like numbers and anything like that. I'm going to say Texas is going to win over Washington. Pretty close, though. I would give it like a 30-27 type deal. Such total BS. Yeah, I hear you, Danielle. That we went into this knowing somebody was going to be pissed off. And, I mean, I'm in Pennsylvania, but I can imagine I can hear a lot of pissed off people in Tallahassee right now. You could be punished because you're not. That's a good point there too. And like, that is a good point. Punished, you could have been punished because it wasn't SEC. I mean, well, within a decade, it's all going to be like one or two big conferences anyway, because all the other conferences are dissolving. The Big 12 and Pac-12 are going to be reduced to ash at this point because Texas and Oklahoma is leaving the Big 12. And I believe USC and UCLA, I believe those were the teams that were also leaving for the Big 10. So, but yeah, I mean, ultimately, what may have done it, what may have put Bama in, was the fact that they knocked out the two-time defending champions. It just might have been that. It might have been the fact that they beat Georgia. To your point, Danielle, it might have been just because it was the SEC as opposed to the ACC, which the ACC does not have anywhere near the caliber of teams that the SEC produces. I mean, wasn't there a point where the SEC had 4 top 10s this year? Ole Miss, I think, was in that picture as well. But real quick, so I can wrap up here, so I can get ready for the Steelers Cardinals here. Michigan, Alabama. Is this finally time for? Is this finally the moment where John Harbaugh finally gets over? Gets over not just the semifinal hump, but actually gets Michigan to a national championship, which has been the pressure cooker for him. You know what? It's Nick Saban. I'm going to say Alabama versus Texas in the national championship. I'm going to say there's going to be a rematch. And do I think Nick Saban will get yet another one, or is Texas going to get their first national championship since Vince Young? You know what? If Texas is good enough to beat Alabama at Tuscaloosa, then they can beat them for the Natty. So my national champion, from what I'm seeing here, my gut feeling and all that, I'm going to go Texas over Alabama. And you know what? I'll give it the same score as it was the last time, 34-24. I like Michigan. I like Washington. But more often than not, when it comes to situations like that, where it's like, okay, why was this team in here? That team wound up winning. Like Alabama snuck in over Ohio State one year, and Alabama ended up beating Georgia for the national championship. Same with Ohio State when they first brought this in. It was like, why Ohio State over Baylor and TCU? And Ohio State wound up beating Alabama and Oregon to win the Natty. So maybe Alabama will win it again because of that. Because of that little chip on their shoulder, I guess. I don't know. I got to go. Thanks for tuning in.